Welcome to a short introduction to the topic of virtual patients. After this video, you should be able to explain what virtual patients are and in which different forms they are available. And you should be able to explain which type of skills learners can train with virtual patients. So first of all, what are virtual patients? The problem is that the term is really defined in a fuzzy way. One definition is that a virtual patient is a software for case-based training in healthcare professions. So it's very general. And virtual patients are a special form of a virtual scenario. A virtual patient usually takes place in a real-life setting, and the learner plays an active role within the scenario. Moreover, it's a safe environment where learners can make errors and they can learn from these. Usually virtual patients also include some kind of feedback. In addition to this fuzzy description of virtual patients, there exist different forms. The first one are web-based interactive scenarios, and you can see an example on the right side, which are available online and you don't need any additional hardware. They are typically used for teaching clinical reasoning or knowledge. The second form are virtual worlds, for example, scenarios in Second Life. They are suitable for teaching teamwork or clinical reasoning. The third form are the so-called high-fidelity software simulations, which are typically used to teach clinical skills or procedures. An example would be scenarios in mixed reality environments. And the last form are virtual standardized patients, which are typically used to teach communication skills. In these scenarios, the communication can be implemented either using written text or applying natural language processing approaches. In the following, I would like to focus on the web-based interactive scenarios because they are widely used in healthcare education and they are easier to implement than, for example, the high-fidelity software simulations. Basically, for the web-based scenarios, we can discriminate between three different models of navigation or learner path through the scenario. I will also explain that later on with two examples. The linear model, which you can see on top, has a predetermined path and all learners see the same information and the decisions of the learners have no influence on the path. A bit different is the semi-linear model, where decisions have some influence on the path, but there's one main path which all learners follow, and all learners end at the same point in the scenario. The branched model is a bit different. Here each decision influences the path, and learners can follow very different pathways. They can even experience different endings of a scenario. So for example, if the learner makes very good decisions, in the end the patient can be released from hospital. Or if the learner makes very bad decisions, it could be that the patient dies. As a first example, I would like to show you a screenshot from the virtual patient system Casus. Casus is a linear and semi-linear system which is mainly used for self-directed learning scenarios. In the screenshot, you can see, for example, how feedback is implemented. There is a feedback and an expert button which can be accessed by the learners. Interactivity can be implemented with different questions, and there's a clinical reasoning tool where students are prompted to enter patients' problems, differential diagnosis, tests, and treatment options. And they are also asked to make a final diagnosis. The second example is a virtual patient from the system Open Labyrinth. Open Labyrinth is a branched system which is often used in cooperative learning settings such as PBL seminars. In such cooperative settings, students discuss their options and then decide about their next steps. You can see the decision points here where the students can decide about which path to follow by clicking on one of the options. Feedback is then provided on the next screen. The screenshot does not include any media material, but of course, like other virtual patient systems, also Open Labyrinth can display images or videos. Here are some additional links if you want to take a closer look into the virtual patients. The first one gives an overview of existing virtual patient systems where you can access websites and demo cases. The other two links are to Casus and Open Labyrinth where you can access and play through virtual patients. So finally, I would like to mention some pros and cons of virtual patients. First of all, they are a risk-free training opportunity for students where no patients can be harmed and students can learn from their errors. Virtual patients can be adaptable to learners' needs and skills, and they are scalable so that many students can access them at the same time. They can also be implemented in multiple different scenarios, such as the learner-centered self-directed scenario or a group-based learning setting, such as the PBL seminars. On the other side, there is an effort for creating virtual patients, updating them, and supporting the users. But of course, like in other e-learning resources, once you've created the virtual patients, you can use them in many different settings and many different ways. Especially when using multimedia materials such as images or videos, you have to be aware of copyright and data protection aspects. And finally, technical aspects are important to consider. It's important that the system is running and the students don't experience any technical barriers. So this was a short introduction into the topic of virtual patients. If you're interested, I can recommend the following resources where you can find more information.